you want, it's up to you. If it's not, that's okay.
Sure, you bet.
You have a choice.
Yeah. Oh, my glasses. Oh, Carol. Here comes Carol. Okay. Susie over there. Are you using that, Todd?
No, I'm not just.
There's one missing over there.
Yeah, yeah. We ready to go?
I think so, yeah, let's go.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal, religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome to one and all. I want to start by embracing all that you bring with you to this space, all of your uniqueness, all of your unique beliefs and your background and your lifestyle and your experiences and even your differences. All that helps make you who you are is welcome here this morning. And this includes everyone here, those who hear me say this each Sunday as well as those who might be hearing it for the first time today. You're equally as welcome and appreciated. And of course, it also includes those of you who are streaming with us this morning always great to know that you're with us too. So thank you all so much for being here. Before we take a few moments to greet one another, I do want to mention that this is our annual Endowment Sunday. You may not know that we had an annual endowment fund Sunday, I should say, because this is only our second Sunday. And last year we kicked it off with a special sermon about moving forward in the future. Not going to do that today because I already gave that last year for those who remember it. Anyone? No? But we do want to really continue to keep the endowment fund in front of our members because this is something that we worked very hard and many of you have contributed to very generously over the past few years to make that fund grow from, I think, roughly about $190,000 when I came here 8 years ago to over $500,000 today. Last year we met that $500,000 goal, and it's been as high, I think this year is about $640,000, and it's probably closer to $500,000 again, given events of recent weeks. That's how the market goes. But we really wanted to get it to about that point so that we can fairly reliably get a little bit of income from that each year to help us toward our goal of having a sustainable budget. That's a big goal of our community here, to live sustainably. So the endowment fund is something that's going to help us do that from now on, as long as we're here. That's the hope. And so I wanted to make you aware of it. I know last week we had a requiem service, and we remembered a lot of the folks in our world who have contributed to our species, as well as many who have been part of our community, such an important part of our community that are no longer with us. And the endowment is always something, one helpful way to remember those who have meant something to us. So if there's a possibility you would want to contribute to our endowment fund on behalf of someone, you can do that. There is an envelope in our order of service today, and you can, if you want to become a contributor or want to contribute something, you can fill that out and put it in the offering basket when it comes by later. Or if you just want to know more about the endowment, its history, what it's doing, how we use it, Donna Borden Rhodes, who really helped start this fund many years ago, is in the back with a table, and she's ready to answer all of your questions. So thanks to our endowment team, and thanks to all of you who have contributed over the years to make it such a success, and appreciate those who can continue to help support it. Wow, I feel like a televangelist. Showing my roots, yeah. Well, I do want to take just a few moments here at the start of our service, as usual, to give you an opportunity to greet one another, to say hello to those that you look forward to seeing each Sunday, as well as making some new friends today. And if you are joining us for the first time, our only request is that you please don't be shy.
You were going to.
Thank you. And as always, there'll be more opportunity to visit with one another after our service during our social hour. So please stick around for some warm coffee, tea, and some warm conversation as well. But let's move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty. Maya Angelou. The following commentaries come from a few I wrote for the All Little Nature Chapel. As we strive to accomplish lofty goals, we must regularly step out and immerse ourselves either physically or allegorically in the sanctuary of nature, poised to deeply breathe in its marvelous peace. Breathe in the light, breathe in the colors, breathe in the perfume of the outdoors, breathe in the silence punctuated by the song of birds, breathe in the joy of life. Within our walls, we have learned to replicate these magical elements of nature, which we interpret in myriads of ways, in order to create our own atmosphere of peace, joy, and hope, in our personal universe of home. Breathe in the pleasure of feelings evoked by your chosen symbols within the temples of our private surroundings. Breathe in the strength found in the love of our heaven from the storms which sometimes shake our existence. Breathe in the ever-present light. Namaste.
Please rise and bow to your spirit to sing the first in-service hymn of the day, number 90. This is one we have not sung very often, so I'm going to have Michelina play it through the whole way. And if some of you may want to access your gray hymnals or, of course, our screen. From all the fret and fever of the day, let there be moments when we turn away, and deaf to all confusing outer din, intently listen for the voice within. In quietness and solitude we find the soundless wisdom of the deeper mind. With clear harmonious purpose let us then bring richer meaning to the world again.
Good morning. So a few weeks ago, I got up here and talked about potential and kinetic energy. Kinetic energy being what describes movement of objects, and potential being stored energy, which allows for the movement of objects. And I talked about the relationship between the two, that it is important to store up our potential energy and to do things which take care of ourselves so that we can move, so that we can change the world, so that we can be better friends, better partners, do better at our job, etc. Now, I would like to propose something a little bit radical. That the importance of potential energy in ourselves is not just so that we can be change makers, not just so that we can do better at our jobs, and not just so that we can be better partners, but simply because we are each deserving of joy. And the things that we do for self-care often are the things which bring us joy. So, instead of a real story today, instead, what I'd like to do is have you turn to somebody near you and share with them something that brings you joy.
We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this community and its mission to the larger world.
Todd Milne, thank you so much. We're now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning, and want to begin with a candle for Barbara Clapp, who had a heart ablation on Thursday. Please keep her in your mind, hearts. And also a candle for church member Aaron Rowe, who suffered a serious heart attack a couple weeks ago while out of town, and he is still in the hospital, finally moved out of ICU in Richland, Washington. And then also for Joni Nelson, who is recovering from a rotator cuff surgery that she had on Tuesday. I understand that she and Sue are at home streaming with us this morning, so good to have both of you. And Joni, I hope your recovery is going well. Let's take a moment of silence as usual on behalf of others that you might be thinking of this morning, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion.
May you never be too busy in life to stop and smell the roses. Anonymous. A new week is about to start. Trust in the possibilities. Know that the divine light permeates all there is. The one with the wind, be one with the wind as it blows in your hair. Be one with the refreshing rain. Be one with the sun as it creates the most beautiful of rainbows. Be one with the earth's magnificent flowers. Namaste.
For today's reading, I'm going to read a poem by St. John of the Cross, known by many for both the phrase and the poem, The Dark Night of the Soul. He certainly was one who understood the many wonderful possibilities that can occur by daring the dark. This one is called Chasing After Love's High Game. To follow that flight in chase of the divine, I had to fly so high I was lost from sight. Even then in this game I fell short in my flight, but my love flew yet so high that the hunt became my prey. The higher I climbed, though my eyes became blind, my greatest conquest was won in the deepest black of night. But to be this love's game, I gave a blind leap in the dark, and I flew so high, that the hunt became my prey. The higher I climbed in this high game of love, the more tired and low, the more beaten was my downward plunge. I said, no one can seize the prey. This cast me down so low, that the higher and higher I soared, and the hunt became my prey. Following a strange course, I flew 1,000 flights as one, for the hope of heaven's door reaches as high as it hopes. All my hope is in this love's game, and my hope did not fall short, for so high I soared, that the hunt became my prey. Thank you so much, Todd. It's always great to have you with us and your very special, unique music. So there are, by the way, I don't think I've been here since the new year started, so Happy New Year. I should say that. Happy New Year to all of you. Yeah. It's winter time, and winter time is often a good time to go inside, and so I thought I'd give a sermon about channeling your inner therapist this morning. So I'm going to begin by mentioning that there are two books that have had a profound impact on my thinking that I've never read. And that's because their titles are so good. They say it all. The first is James Hillman and Michael Ventura's 1993 collaboration. We've had 100 years of psychotherapy, and the world's getting worse. It's now been about 125 years, and things haven't gotten much better, at least not in the realm of what psychotherapy, psychology, and psychiatry work to address, which I'll summarize as peace of mind or contentment. We all want to be happy with our lives, with ourselves, with the way things are, but many of us often are. Although it's a relative term, Hillman and Ventura say things are worse than ever, from which they infer psychotherapy isn't working. In the more recent book, The Coddling of the American Mind, which I urge everyone to read, I actually have read that one, Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff confirm that rates of suicide, depression, and anxiety are greater than ever among today's newest generation, referred to as iGen, those born in the internet age around 1995. Here in the U.S., their data indicates the percentage of iGen college students describing themselves as having a mental disorder, mostly anxiety and depression, has increased from 2.7 to 6.1% for male college students between just 2012 and 2016. That's an increase of 126%. For female college students, it rose even more, from 5.8% to 14.5%, an increase of about 150%. Anxiety is now the leading problem for which college students seek treatment, they say, further pointing out that during that same period, there have been substantial increases in the rates of self-injury and suicide among college students. So according to this data, at least when it comes to peace of mind, things really do seem worse than ever. But worse is a relative term. There's also lots of data indicating that the world is much better today than ever before. Better being another relative term. According to numerous sources, the books Abundance and Bold, both co-authored by Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler, The Rational Optimist by Matt Ridley, the anthology What Are You Optimistic About, edited by John Brockman, and Factfulness by Hans Rosling, and numerous reports that you can get right off of the United Nations website, things are better than many of us think. Take the most recent of these, Rosling's 2018 bestseller, Factfulness. According to the data, Rosling points out that during the last 20 years alone, the number of people in the world living in extreme poverty has been cut in half. The majority of the world's people now live in middle-income countries. 60% of girls living in low-income countries complete primary education. The number of people being born in the world has leveled off, and the number of children today is expected to be the same number of children in 2100. The global population will continue to rise until then by about another 4 billion people before leveling off, mostly because people are living longer. The average life expectancy around the world is now 70 years. During the past century, the number of us killed in natural disasters has been cut in half. 80% of the world's children have been vaccinated against common childhood diseases. By age 30, men have spent an average of 10 years in school compared to 9 years for women of the same age. Rosling and the other sources I've mentioned leave us with lots of verifiable statistics like these, yet his book in particular also includes surveys about what most people think is true about these areas. In all categories, most people think things are far worse than they are. In fact, Rosling points out that only 10% of the 12,000 people he tested from 14 countries scored as well as a group of chimpanzees would have at random. They would have at least gotten it right about 33% of the time. But most people on average have gotten only 2 out of 12 questions right. Part of the problem from the standpoint of evolutionary psychology may be that humans aren't wired to think positively about the future. As Matt Ridley says in The Rational Optimist, 1,000,000 years of natural selection shaped human nature to be ambitious to rear successful children, not to settle for contentment. People are programmed to desire, not to appreciate. Citing Ridley in their book Abundance, The Future is Better Than You Think, Diamandis and Kotler state more succinctly, we might be gloomy because gloomy people have managed to avoid getting eaten by lions. Happy people, in short, didn't survive evolution. If this is so, if we are gloomy by nature because of natural selection, it may explain why after 125 years of studying how the human psyche works, psychotherapy hasn't helped improve much. How can we cure discontentment if we have evolved to be discontent? Or maybe Hillman and Ventura themselves are glumly looking at the glass half empty. Maybe more of us are happier today than we think. Or maybe things are better than ever today because many of us have been worrying about things to begin with. How would we ever progress if we were all content with the status quo, with how things are, with good enough? Maybe a little unhappiness in the world isn't such a bad thing. I've personally studied psychology as a means of personal growth and well-being more than most novices, and even wrote my doctoral dissertation on the subject. Yet I agree, psychotherapy hasn't solved all our problems, nor should we ever have expected it to. Since its advent 125 years ago, the world has gotten worse in many ways, and better in other ways. But this isn't reason to infer that things haven't gotten better or have gotten worse because of it. Psychotherapy is one tool in our toolbox that can help us with certain matters, but it isn't a tool that can fix everything in our lives or in the world. The word therapy means to assist, and that's all it's meant to do, to assist us in our work as individuals. But we still have to take responsibility for our own lives, growth, and well-being. So the other book that I've never read that has transformed my outlook is If You Meet the Buddha on the Road, Kill Him. The Pilgrimage of Psychotherapy Patients by Sheldon B. Kopp. The full cover actually says, no meaning that comes from outside ourselves is real. The Buddhahood of each of us has already been obtained. We need only recognize it. Thus, the Zen master warns his disciple, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. As a psychotherapist himself, which he views as a type of modern guru, Kopp isn't advising animosity towards therapists, only that each of us must take responsibility for our own growth and well-being. A good therapist can, again, assist us in this effort by helping to point us in the right direction, or even better, to help us discover the right direction for ourselves. But the journey, with its unexpected turns, its ups and downs, its rough goings, is ours to take. I would also add that as an empiricist, I don't agree no meaning that comes from outside ourselves is real. I think one of the problems with our world today is that far too many of us are unwilling to integrate factual data and hard evidence into our worldviews, whether conservatives denying things like global warming or liberals obsessed with their right to believe whatever they want without challenge. We'd all be better off if more of us embraced the realities outside ourselves. But I do like the part about killing the Buddha, which serves to remind me that I must become my own guru, the person, that is, who is responsible for my own unfolding and health. So this, in short, is the theory of psychotherapy that I've adopted in my life, or of self-care, based on the titles of these two books, that things can become better or worse with or without psychotherapy, which should be seen only as a tool for aiding us in our own interpersonal work, and that we must each ultimately take personal responsibility for our own growth, fulfillment, and happiness. And my guess is that the psychotherapist, psychologist, and psychiatrist in the room would agree with me. This means, in addition to professional therapy, that there are other things that we can do in pursuit of our own peace of mind. There are a few practices that I found helpful. The first of which is attitude. As I mentioned, evolutionary psychology suggests that we may naturally be inclined toward a pessimistic outlook, even if things aren't really as bad as we think. This really hit home for me when I was studying the psychology of fundamentalism while working on my dissertation, and learned that one of its earmarks is what is actually called apocalypticism. The unfounded fear that things are so bad, or that my problems are so big, that the whole world is coming to an end. It's an exaggeration of our fear instinct, which under normal circumstances can keep us safe, but should subside once we've assessed the situation and determined that there aren't any real threats. For some people, however, the state of hypervigilance that our amygdala is prone toward is always alert, leading to a life of unwarranted anxiety, paranoia, conspiracy theories, and the general belief or feeling that things are just terrible. But you don't have to be a conservative again, let alone a fundamentalist, for this to be so. In the coddling of the American mind, Haidt and Lukianoff point out that it is often progressives who succumb to what they call catastrophizing, which they define as focusing on the worst possible outcome and seeing it as the most likely. I realized several years ago that this had been true of my own thinking and outlook, that I was prone to seeing and fearing the worst. Becoming aware of this tendency, however, has changed my life and my outlook. I now have a much more positive outlook of the world, hope for the future, and far fewer dragons to slay or windmills to tilt my lance at. By simply becoming aware of the cognitive distortion in my own life, I've been able to keep it in check and to be a happier person. This leads to the second practice, researching and accepting the facts. In days past, this was a lot harder to do. It took a lot of time to find the facts, learn the facts, and those who did were considered experts in their areas. Today, the internet has made it easy for most of us to find reliable data-driven reports from reputable sources. Looking at the real numbers can help us reevaluate our unsubstantiated presumptions. And of course, the research is easy these days, but finding the will to challenge our own beliefs is no easier than it ever has been. Many would prefer to simply get their information from Fox News or MSNBC, or base it upon the scrutiny and acceptance of one's own peers. But to be healthy, genuinely happy individuals, it's necessary to be honest with ourselves and to embrace our world on its own terms. As Haidt and Lukianoff explain, if you can get people to examine their beliefs and consider counter-evidence, it gives them at least some moments of relief from negative emotions. And if you release them from negative emotions, they become more open to questioning their negative beliefs. A third practice is logically evaluating what we hear. This isn't as easy as using the internet, because most of us have never learned to reason, though most of us like to think of ourselves as perfectly reasonable. Reason is a discipline that must be learned and practiced, just like trigonometry or playing the saxophone or playing the flute. You weren't born with a flute in your mouth, I'm guessing. No, yeah. These things don't come naturally. What does come naturally for us is emotional thinking. Thinking that justifies our emotions, that justifies what we desire to be true. These rationalizations, Erich Fromm says, are essentially lacking this quality of discovering and uncovering. They only confirm the emotional prejudice existing in oneself. So this is another technique that your inner therapist can use. Getting in the habit of asking yourself if your thinking is helping you learn something new, or if it's only confirming what you already believe is true. If your own minds are mostly in agreement with you, you're probably not as reasonable as you think. Learn logic if you can, but if you can't, there's something much easier you can do to make yourself a happier person and a better thinker. Get back into the habit of asking why. I say get back in the habit because we do begin our lives by naturally and incessantly asking why about everything, until we hear, "Don't talk back to me," or "because I said so," or "don't ask questions," or "never question the authorities," one too many times. But logic is simply the study of what follows, of making inferences, of figuring out why something is said and supposed to be true. So train yourself to let the question start coming naturally again. Any time somebody asserts something is true, or you catch yourself believing something is true, ask yourself why. And then consider if that why makes any sense. You'll notice all these practices so far are about adjusting our mindset. And that's what self-therapy is about, having a more positive mindset, or at least a more realistic one. By expanding our awareness, recognizing our tendency, the human tendency to expect the worst, looking at empirical data, learning logic, and asking why. This is because self-therapy is more about changing our minds than our circumstances. Though not always, we often must accept things the way they are, then do our best to cope. It's with this in mind that I also recommend bibliotherapy. I imagine there's a lot of you who already treat yourselves with bibliotherapy. A lot of readers here. This is a technique that I learned from philosopher Lou Marinoff, author of Plato Not Prozac and founder of the American Philosophical Practitioners Association, of which I'm happy to be a member. In discussing philosophy with his clients in the hope of providing them with a new perspective, Marinoff finds that it's can be helpful to prescribe books to those wanting to learn more about helpful ideas. Quoting Thoreau, he says, "How many a man has dated a new era in his life from the reading of a book?" Of course, the bookstores are filled with shelves of self-help books, some of which are better than others. But when it comes to evidence-based info, the science shelves might be just as helpful. Or my favorite, the philosophy shelves, a discipline that requires us to question our own mindsets, the ones that we're trying to change. Seems like a good place to start. If you're looking for a recommendation, Plato Not Prozac is also a good place to start. These days, I'd also recommend learning about the specific philosophy of Stoicism, which has been around about 2,300 years, but is making a comeback. Stoicism is about maintaining our peace of mind regardless of what's going on by distinguishing between what we can and can't control and focusing on what we can control. I'd also suggest studying cognitive behavioral therapy and putting it into practice. CBT can especially help with the rising rate of anxiety disorders because rather than avoiding the things we're anxious about, it helps us face our fears, and in doing so, to become aware of the many cognitive distortions that cause us to see the world wrongly, like always expecting the worst. Interestingly, if you read modern books about Stoicism, their authors compare them to cognitive behavioral therapy. And if you read books about cognitive behavioral therapy, their authors compare them to ancient Stoicism. So I'd recommend putting William Irvine's A Guide to the Good Life, The Ancient Art of Stoic Joy, and the aforementioned The Coddling of the American Mind on your bibliotherapeutic book list. Another practice is making time to relax and enjoy life without worrying about doing anything to fix yourself or the world. Let it all go and just have fun. Sweet, sweet surrender. Let yourself be imperfect, incomplete, and unfinished. Just take a few moments to appreciate the rare gift of being a sentient, somewhat self-aware being in this universe. Take in your guilty pleasures with some abandon before it's too late, because life is too short. As the poet Rumi said, drink all your passions and be a disgrace. Finally, your inner therapist needs to be someone that you can trust. I don't mean you should trust your feelings or blindly trust your own beliefs, for these can be generated from the very cognitive distortions and faulty thinking that we're trying to recover from. By trusting yourself, I mean becoming a person you know does your best to see the world on its own terms by looking at the empirical facts, reasoning well, asking why, studying, facing your fears, and taking some time to rest and recreate. In short, become a person you trust by striving not to deceive yourself. Be honest with yourself. This requires us to allow ourselves permission to be wrong. I don't mean just being ideologically wrong. I mean being ideally wrong. It means recognizing we don't have to be perfect, and that part of being human, as we've seen, is discontentment, a state that's always pushing us forward, to become more than we are, to make the world better no matter how good it gets. The reason James Hillman thinks the world has gotten worse despite a century of psychotherapy is because psychotherapy is not about fixing the world. It's good to focus on ourselves and to strive for contentment, but if we're always content, how would anything ever get better? To make things better, we have to accept the responsibility that we have to others, to what's beyond ourselves, and to do what we can and must, even in our brokenness, to be helpful, productive, and a loving presence in our world. Thank you.
Please rise for the last hymn of the morning, number 83, Winds Be Still. And I will ask Michelina to play this one all the way through because it is new to most of us.
The day I decided that my life was magical, there was suddenly magic all around me. Anonymous. When all is well, bask in the joy of your oneness with the flowers, rivers, rocks, and all of life. When times are hard, remember that change is part of existence, and a new cycle is just around the corner, bringing renewal. Trust in the magic of the universe. Namaste. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.